We'll give people a few minutes to just find their way in. Here they all come. Hey everybody. So I'm in a different environment today. I am visiting family, so I am holed away in somebody's crafts room. But we're gonna pull this off anyways. As always, if anybody has anything they are struggling with or working on that they'd like us to talk about, you're welcome to put it in the chat. Otherwise, let's just take a deep breath. And just show up where you are. There's nothing to push towards. There's nothing to resist or pull away from. There's nothing to achieve. Nothing that has to become different. And there's nothing you need to heal. For you to be you. What you are is unconditional. You are consciousness. So all you have to do is show up. You've seen it before, right? You come to a class like this, kind of messed up from your day. And what we do here is not intricate. You just show up. You allow your awareness to just be what it is without thinking anything needs to change. The irony is, when you do that, everything finally changes. As a species, we know this. You hear it out of the mouths of people who aren't particularly even trying to say something spiritual. They say it in the context of relationships. Oh yeah, when you finally stop looking, the person you're meant to be with shows up. You know, a lot of the kinds of jobs that I thought I needed finally showed up when I was suddenly just over it and going to go to school for something else. When you finally stop needing the moment to be something different than it is, and you just show up for it exactly the way it is, there's power there. All the little wrinkles start working themselves out. First, what happens is life starts giving you a lot of the things that you have strongly said you wanted. Fortunately and unfortunately. Fortunately, because you have to experience the things you think you need in order to be able to move on from them. Unfortunately, in that you have no idea what's going to make you happy. And so your best guess is usually not a great one. But you show up, you just let it all breathe. And all the little storylines that you've built and solidified just start kind of working themselves out. Usually you get what you want, you realize you didn't want it or need it, and then you end up in a position where you can let it go. Give or take 10 years. But all of that is a process of shedding skin so that you can really just be what you are underneath all those layers of crap you think you need. And as those layers fall off, you become free. But what is it that's becoming free? Really, what's been trapped? But your attention. This deep fundamental power that you have, this part of you that is a co-creator with the highest forces in your universe, has been stuck on a loop for decades. Actually, there's many, many different loops that we're stuck on. Things that just hold your attention in place because you think you need them. It can be the pursuit of a mate, the pursuit of a job. It can be the pursuit of a cookie. Have you ever had that experience where like you've been eating some brand of cheap something, and then when it's gone, it's like there's a hole where it was. Your mind even starts projecting images. Your body starts pushing forward images. Because if it goes much further, that little loop is going to die. If you let the loop die, then that's a portion of your attention that is yours again. yours to shift to something more useful to you. When you come here, I sit down. I release my attention on my day completely so that I can just be present in this moment, connected with you. And I guide you to release your attention on all the storylines that you've been running. And you may not get all the way on any given night. But anything you free up, any attention you free up actually becomes a personal power returned to your body. It costs energy to keep those loops circling. And it's rejuvenating to let them go. It literally gives you some of your youth back. The main difference between you when you were young and you now is that you had less loops going. You had more attention available to just explore and really invest in things that were of interest to you in the moment. We call that playing. And then we get older. Our loops turn into responsibilities. And then our identity starts to form, and we end up with loops that are just involved in holding together this idea of who we are, which makes us inflexible and tired. I've rebuilt my life many times. Not because it fell apart, I disassembled it. Certain key structures in it had taken turns that made them inadequate pillars for the spiritual life I was trying to build. I think that's the most tactful way I can say that. And life that people thought I would be in for until I died. Just dismantled, reassembled. You do that a few key times in your life, and it teaches you something important. None of this is fixed. It only looks stuck and fixed because you've allowed it to become such a habit. Until and unless you are willing to let it go, you become its slave. That doesn't mean if you have things in your life that are nurturing and good to you that you have to let them go. But you have to be able to let them go. It's different. There's a massive difference between going through your day with your habitual points of attention and all those feelings and things that stirs up in your life, versus going through your day, looking in all the same places, but knowing at a visceral level that you could let it all go in an instant and transform into something completely different. Way number one, you're dead asleep. Way number two, you're choosing your life and your future is flexible. Way number one, you are a puppet of life. You'll laugh when it's time to laugh. You'll cry when it's time to cry. Way number two, you are the center of this hurricane of life. You're not a victim. If your life is annoying you, and my life is annoying me lately, but if your life is annoying you, you know why, and you're choosing to stick with it for some reason. You've made a decision. And if the meaning of how it's currently arranged changes, then you can change your decision and just let it all rearrange into something different. Most of the time I choose to stay with annoying things because there's so much flexibility to be gained from changing yourself. There's so much flexibility to be gained from saying, okay, this pushes all of my buttons, but I also know that I'm here to be challenged. What's the road through this? Right? Instead of finding a completely different road, what's the actual road through this where I can stay true to the original reason that I entered it while shoring up my loss of vital power along the way? Can you feel the integrity in that? That's a spiritual warrior. I've said this before. When I say things like that, I don't ever mean that you should stay in a physically abusive relationship or an emotionally abusive relationship. You know, you need to bring a sanity to your spiritual life, a sobriety to your spiritual life. I had a student this week who was having trouble passing her kind of entrance exams into our field. And she had taken the exam twice and didn't pass, and she was going to have to take it a third time. And this was a student that complained incessantly. You know, she always had some problem with how she was being taught, always insisted that everything from even like how our slides are made needed to be made a different way for the exact way that she wanted to take notes. She would run around behind our backs talking about other professors to us, and, you know, her writing was always about 2 levels below everybody else's. And now she's having all these problems. But it's about what you would expect. When you run around trying to change everything outside of you to match your comfort, you don't grow. You don't become something more than you are. Even if you get good at making people do those things for you, they're not really doing you a favor, and you're not really gaining anything. She actually sat down and asked for advice, and then at the end started going off on all the different things that need to change about the program. But it's just kind of case in point, you know? None of her peers are having problem passing the exam. It's the person who cannot find their own flexibility. Everyone I've ever met who had an easy life, at some point it caught up to them. You know, they didn't bill in the way that would have been meaningful for them, because as soon as a challenge came, they would just shift direction. Instead, we show up. We show up for this life exactly as it is. We bring our attention to this moment exactly as it is without demanding anything of it. And that power within us, without any manipulation or demand, brings the moment into a deeper balance. It's the reason that I never come to this class knowing what we're going to talk about. If I did, I'd be trying to push a teaching onto you, telling the moment how to be. Instead, you show up and you just look at the threads that are in front of you and you just work with those threads. And it brings the room into balance. For anybody showing up for a class like this, you're at a point in your development where you're ready to show up. Anybody attracted to this class, you've developed to a point where you're ready to change you. People say, well, I don't know how to do that. Nobody does. But you don't have to, because this entire universe that you have manifested in is a machine designed to do that. It's why all these painful moments exist for everybody. And it's brutal. You won't always survive it. But that's part of it. All the changes you need to make come forward as part of the alchemy of the suffering of the moment. That suffering is there to play you like an instrument, to change your vibrations, to show you new things, strengthen you in new ways. If you just walk away from it every time, a few things will happen. One, you'll start to stagnate, so you'll suffer in other ways. Ways that don't move you forward as well. You'll still move forward, but it'll be slower and more painful. And it'll hit harder because you won't have been sort of shoveling it as it comes in. At some point, though, on the track of any spiritual warrior, you have to come to terms with this mess that we all landed in. Because it is the mechanism through which you can do what you came here to do, which is wake up. Find your strength and openness within the challenge. If you look at how this works for non-spiritual warriors, it's actually the same process. What they do, though, is they find little pockets of life to play out that process. So maybe at a certain job, they will grow into a position. And we've seen those people where they actually, you call them to talk about your plumbing or your air conditioning or something like that, and it's like suddenly you realize you're speaking to an expert. You're speaking to somebody who has power. They could stand on their own 2 feet. They not only know exactly what to do, but they're not afraid to tell you what you need to do. There's strength there. There's power there. And then you get them into another area of life and there may be a mess. The more areas you have like that in your life, the more it becomes just the way you live your life. But on a spiritual track, you have to live it all that way. So you show up wide open. You start to notice all the little ways that you avoid yourself, all the little people pleasing, all the little things you do just to grease the wheels of a moment. The tiny inauthenticities. Pretending things that aren't okay are okay. And you don't just jump to the opposite of it. Instead, you just open up and live authentically in the center of it. And let that be whatever it's going to be. We learn meditation because meditation, to really do it right, involves all of that. You show up for the mind as it is. It gets the direct brunt of your attention, and it starts to transform in ways that if it just keeps going, you become something completely different. You watch the mind come in, scurrying to distract you, because if you take one more step, some part of it is going to change in a way that maybe won't change back. And you just stay open and centered. You let the change happen, and your whole world becomes bigger. All of that is about accepting the mechanism of this plane of existence. Working with this brief window of opportunity on its own terms so that you can take it as far as it can go. And I say these things tonight because this understanding needs to live in you if you are ever going to take what you're learning from meditation and filter it into your actual life, which is, of course, its purpose. Are there any questions about that before we go into meditation? Sorry, guys, I know I'm talking a lot. Okay. So let's show up now. Meditation is showing up in the absolute sense. Every cell of your body, every cell of your being, wide awake, open, available, present for this moment. Do that as you watch your breath in this moment. Eyes open, attention at the forehead and crown. of your head and watch this moment. If what you're seeing in this moment is making you uncomfortable, then you aren't seeing this moment. You're seeing characteristics that you have ascribed to things in this moment. But a true moment has no characteristics. So set this moment free of your attributions. Stop projecting and let life show you what it is. Imagine you don't know. Imagine you have no idea. If your knowledge is weighing you down, release your knowledge. This moment is self-existent. There's nothing it needs from you. So release the walls, the light, the air, the building. Relinquish everything you know about it. Notice what you're left with. Is it better or worse? Relinquish your body. Your gut, your heart, your lungs, your legs. Forget everything you know about it. Just empty out all that heavy knowledge. What does that do to the feeling moving through your flesh? Better or worse? these things you think you need to fix about yourself. Your body, your chakras, your psyche. Just let go of everything you think you know about it right now. Let it go as if you were willing to relinquish it forever. Your name. That central persona that you defend, that you make yourself miserable defending. Let go of your knowledge about that. Let it go, and you remain present. Relax within it. Letting it go is not pushing it away. Relax so that the energy can flow. There's a life to be had in this state. Just show up for this moment. But you're releasing all the things that you cover it with. And what's there? What is this experience? And where's the line between us in this state? Those lines are just stories. Relative boundaries. Self-imposed. Built mostly on fear. We all have roles that we play. And if you want to defend those roles out in the world, because you're in a world where people are defending, that's fine. But you continue defending those roles when you're alone. When you're at home. Those roles are not what you are. This is what you are. And this has a depth to it you've barely begun to explore. This gets deeper every day. But you have to take off the costumes, the stories, and spend a good chunk of time as you, as us, as what we are. You do that, and you can have your life without getting lost in it. You can take on restrictions and challenges consciously just to foster flexibility. And build some nice structures in the storyline of this world. And when it's no longer serving anyone, you can just dismantle it, because it wasn't real anyways. Those stories, they just direct the flow of energy. Just like we sometimes try and direct the flow of water. If the water moving in that way isn't working anymore, then you just direct it a different way. Nothing wrong with directing it. But when you build an identity around one direction, so that you're clinging to it even when it doesn't work anymore, there's a problem. You've lost you. Okay, there's a whole beaver metaphor here that I'm not going to indulge myself in. Are there any questions before we end for the night? All right, everybody. I'm going to let you get back to your evening, and I will be here next week. Have a great week.
Thanks, Liam.
Thank you.